tonight we have Sarah Shute and Tina Hill-Thomas. So Sarah is the director of the Onondaga Great Law of Peace Center. She comes to the center with an academic and professional background in environmental science and conservation biology. Sarah is a graduate of SUNY ESF, where she completed her master's project on the seasonal movements and habitat use of the federally threatened bog turtle, which is the smallest turtle in North America. She has worked for a variety of agencies, universities, nonprofits, and private companies on rare and endangered species, including loggerhead sea turtles, bald eagles, and golden-winged warblers. She also contributed to ecological studies on Onondaga Lake, including a study on mercury contamination in snapping turtles. Sarah believes that traditional Haudenosaunee knowledge of the environment and philosophies of sustainability and living in balance with the natural world, as shared at the Onondaga Center, will inspire all those that walk through its doors to make better decisions for our shared future. And Tina is a member of the Onondaga Nation, Eel Clan. She has earned certificates in hotel and restaurant management and medical assisting through Bryant and Stratton College. Tina has been working as an independent caterer since 2010, specializing in traditional Haudenosaunee foods. As the cultural center attendant, Tina brings her knowledge and passion for indigenous foods, agriculture, medicines, language, and culture to the Onondaga Great Law of Peace Center. What a pleasure it is to have both of you with us this evening, and take it away.
Thank you so much, Jason. Tina and I are both happy to be here tonight. We feel that it's such a privilege to represent the Onondaga Great Law of Peace Center. We feel very passionate about what we share here. We hope that many folks have already visited and certainly would be encouraged to visit in the future. I was going to give two quick warnings before we get started. One, I tried to keep the talk at an hour. I'm not exactly sure how long it will go, but we expanded this presentation beyond bald eagles. We wanted to include some other areas where birds in general are recognized and celebrated by the Haudenosaunee. We're going to go through a traditional Thanksgiving address process, which is very meaningful to Tina and I. It's also one of the most important things that we hope that guests take away from their visit here at the center. It can be emotional, and I think I'm just feeling particularly emotional today after going through this presentation and feeling so incredibly lucky for all the experiences that I've had and the wonderful people that I've worked with, as some of whom are on this call. So if you can bear with me while I get through this, I appreciate it, but it's because what we're doing here, it feels like I'm carrying out part of my soul's mission here at the center. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us tonight and for taking the time out of your evenings to share with us and be with us tonight for this presentation. So as Jason introduced us, I appreciated him contacting me. I did feel like this topic was a great one for me to speak on because of my experience working in ecology and wildlife conservation. And so I was happy to join you all tonight. And he sort of already gave you the bio. These are some of the very interesting and wonderful animals that I've had the chance to work with, and some of the people. And you can see Tina here in a lot of the cultural work that she does at the center. And she's also just been a wonderful teacher and friend to me as we've gotten to know each other over the last couple of years. So for those of you who are not aware, the Onondaga Great Law of Peace Center is the Haudenosaunee Cultural Heritage Center. We're located on the shore of Onondaga Lake. Onondaga Lake is sacred to the Haudenosaunee. It's where the peacemaker came over 1,000 years ago and united the original 5 nations on these very shores under the Great Law of Peace, uniting them as the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. It's the oldest living democracy in the world. They have been governing under these principles for over 1,000 years ago, meeting collectively here in Onondaga, which is the capital or the central fire of the Confederacy. The photo that you see in the center is of Tadadaho Sid Hill. So Tadadaho is the spiritual leader of the entire Confederacy. He resides here in Onondaga, and he is holding a version of the Hiawatha Belt, a wampum belt that shares the story of the coming together of the 5 nations under the Great Law of Peace right here at Onondaga Lake. And I love this photo in particular because the Onondaga name for Onondaga Lake means where the willows meet the water. For some additional background, you'll see the map on the left there, and that gives you a general idea of the historic range of the Haudenosaunee nations. However, we're looking at a modern day map with borders. The Haudenosaunee didn't have borders or boundaries between their lands. Their influence was felt into the north, into Canada, near Quebec, and up into Nova Scotia, down into the southeastern United States, and west into the Ohio River Valley. Haudenosaunee means people of the Longhouse, and it certainly is representative of that physical structure that the people were living in. However, Longhouse really also is a metaphor for the original 5 nations, eventually 6, the Tuscarora joined in 1722, that they came together as an extended family, sharing culture and traditions and belief systems, and really looking out for the well-being of all the people. So that metaphor of Longhouse actually represents a united family looking out for the common good. So as I mentioned, you're looking there at the Hiawatha Belt, and each of those symbols represents one of the 5 original nations. We always start in the east where the sun rises with the Mohawk, the Oneida. In the center here, the capital is Onondaga, and that's symbolized by the tree of peace. So we'll talk about that a little bit more later, but the white pine is the tree of peace. Then moving forward to the Cayuga and the Seneca. The map on the left there shows you what is now the current boundaries, if you will, of the Haudenosaunee nations in New York State. So you can see there an absolute tremendous loss of those homelands. On the right, it gives you a general idea specifically of Onondaga. And the Onondaga Nation has now been reduced to an area of about 9 square miles or roughly 7,000 acres. So for that reason, we think it's really important, and we certainly encourage other organizations and other people when they meet and gather to acknowledge the Onondaga Nation and the work that they're doing, where we live, where we work, where we play, where we bird watch, where we enjoy the outdoors. These are the ancestral lands of the Onondaga Nation, of the Haudenosaunee. These are a people who live in concert with the land. They live in reciprocal relationship with the land, and feel that they have an important responsibility as human beings in the original instructions they were given during their creation to care for the land in all parts of the natural world. So I'm going to start with a very, very quick overview of the creation story. And the reason that I added this in here in particular, we're short on time and it's really hard to decide what to keep and what to kind of condense with your presentation. And you can certainly learn more about the creation story here. This story can actually take hours to tell. We tell it in about 5 minutes or so. But when the world began, The Haudenosaunee creation story starts with a figure called Sky Woman. And she was actually living in a place above the earth as we know it now. And the earth as we know it now was covered with water. And only animals that could survive in the water lived here. At that time, Sky Woman was pregnant. And like many pregnant women, she was having a craving and she wanted to make a tea. And the tea would come from the roots of a tree, a special tree called the Tree of Light. So she began to dig at the roots of the tree. And as she did, the soil fell away and there was a hole in Sky World, and she fell through Sky World. And she began to tumble through the darkness toward the water-covered earth. The animal beings at the time looked up and they saw her coming, and they knew that they needed to help her. So the geese were the first to rise up, and they joined their wings together and they flew up into the sky to catch Sky Woman, to break her fall, and so that they could bring her safely down. At this time, the great turtle emerged and presented his back and offered that as a safe place for Sky Woman to land. But the other animal beings knew that Sky Woman would need a place to live, and she would need gardens, and she would need food. And so all the diving animals got together and they remembered the oral history, the stories that their grandparents had told them about mud that was at the very deepest parts of the ocean. And so one by one, the best divers dove as far as they could and swam in an attempt to retrieve this mud, but none of them succeeded. And so the final animal, the muskrat, who is among the weakest of the divers, offers that he will give it a try. He will try as hard as he can to collect this mud for Sky Woman. And so he swims and swims and swims until he can hardly hold his breath any longer. And he actually surfaces and his body bobs at the top of the water, and the other animals think that he's dead. And so they put him on Turtle's back and they push on his chest, and the water comes out of his mouth. And when they touch his chest, they feel that his heart is still beating. And as he comes to, he opens his little paws and he has collected the mud from the bottom of the ocean and he places it on Turtle's back. Sky Woman is so grateful for the gifts and the help of the animal beings that she dances in gratitude. In her pockets, she finds seeds that she grabbed as she was struggling, as she fell through Sky World. She grabbed at the roots, and as she did, she grabbed those seeds. And she put those seeds into the mud, and she began to dance in a counterclockwise fashion. And as she danced in gratitude, the earth began to spread over the back of the turtle. And these are the origins of Turtle Island, or what we know now as North America. So from the very origins of creation for the Haudenosaunee, first I'll mention that a woman is the central figure in the Haudenosaunee of a matrilineal society that originates from this very story. And also the reciprocal relationship between humans and the animal beings, that the animal beings were willing to sacrifice their lives to help Sky Woman, and many of those animals were birds. And so from the very origins of life, you have this beautiful relationship between humans and animals taking care of each other here on Turtle Island. So now what Tina and I would like to do is a practice called the Thanksgiving Address. And this is a process that takes a little bit of time, but it's one of the most important and fundamental practices of the Haudenosaunee. The Onondaga word is Ganahanyu Ohandu Gaiwadekwi, and that translates to the words that come before all else. And what this signifies is that these are the most important words that can be spoken. So before any sort of meeting or gathering, it could be a social dance, it could be a wedding, it could be a talk such as this one, or it could be a grand council meeting where the representatives from all the nations come together to make really important decisions about the well-being of all the people. So maybe you could think of that as an equivalent of the US Congress, right? So when they're meeting at levels of that importance, they will open and close every session with the Thanksgiving address. It's also known as an acknowledgement or greetings and thanks to the natural world. So the belief is that the different parts of creation can understand the indigenous languages, and it is the humans' responsibility given to them through their original instructions to express thanks and gratitude to the different parts of the natural world. Oh, and the other thing that I want to do before we get started is to also give you a sense of what is meant by creator. So creator really is sort of the life force, right? It's the life force that runs through every human, every animal, every tree, every plant, every fish, every living being collectively is known as the creator. So you will probably hear us say he and the creator, but what it really is the life force that connects all of us. And so if you think of it, it's not really seen as a God, but if you think of it, right, it's like saying God is in each and every one of us. It's in all of the parts of creation. So again, this is for Tina and I. What we hope as people pass through the center and learn more about this process, that they will take this, this way of expressing gratitude and incorporate it into their daily lives. So first we will begin with the people, our families and our friends. And I've specifically added here many of the wonderful teachers that I've had in my life who have shared so much of their knowledge with me, their passion and enthusiasm. And I wanted to specifically mention Guy Baldessari, and I see his wife Eileen here with us tonight. And many of you may know Guy. He was my professor at SUNY ESF. He was full of passion and enthusiasm and made each and every student feel important, feel special. And he would always say, you can change the world, you will change the world. And so from my earliest time in this field, Guy Baldessari was an inspiration to me, and he continues to be today. You'll see a photo of Tina there. She has become my family. She has taught me so much about her culture and her history. And she is a wonderful complement to me here at the center, because I tend to worry about everything and have to cross all the T's and dot all the I's. And Tina has a very special way of reminding me what's important. So I just want to thank her for being with me tonight. Betty Lyons in the center. Betty is a member of the Onondaga Nation. She heads up, she's the executive director of the American Indian Law Alliance. She put her faith in me to be the director of the center, and I can't thank her enough for helping me to fulfill this role that is so important to my heart and my spirit. Tom Porter is someone who I will probably mention a lot. He is a Mohawk elder. He's a spiritual leader. I have learned so much from him about the culture and the traditions, and very specifically the Thanksgiving address. And I will recommend, if I don't remember to do it now, at some point, I hope I can connect with you later or through email. And I would just tell you, please, just search him on YouTube. There are many recordings of him speaking, and he teaches you. He doesn't just deliver the Thanksgiving address, he helps you to understand more about it. So please, please, please learn more about Tom and his work. And then on the right there is Bernie Carr, who I saw join in earlier. I worked with Bernie a number of years ago. That is a picture of him at a Christmas bird count on Onondaga Lake. And I consider Bernie to be one of my most important mentors. He taught me almost everything I know about birds. He's also one of the most positive and encouraging people I know. And 10 or so years later, after we worked together, I can still call him on a Sunday morning to tell him that I've seen a lifer northern shrike, and we can talk for a long time about it. So I just appreciate his friendship and the knowledge he has shared with me over the years. Oh, and I just threw in the birding. I had to throw in the birding community. Doesn't it feel good to get together with other like-minded individuals, right? Who love being outside, are passionate about birds, are passionate about the natural world. So I'm so thankful to the birding community here, not just for sharing your passion, but for the good work that you're doing here in our community. And now to our mother, the earth. She supports us as we walk upon her. She provides all of the food that we eat. It all comes from her body. She provides us with everything that we need for life. There are so many beautiful places and habitats, places that we can visit all across the globe. And so we are thankful to our mother, the earth, for taking care of us here for thousands of years and hopefully thousands of years to come. And so what I didn't mention before we got started is after each part of creation, what I will say to bring all of us collectively together is, now let us gather our minds together as one. Let's all get on the same page and be grateful for the mother, the earth. Let's send our greetings, love, and thanks to the earth.
Oh.
So in a traditional Haudenosaunee gathering, the response would be toe. If you feel so inclined, you can say yes to express your agreement. And now to the waters of the world, which come in many forms. The Creator gave the water a spirit and instructed the waters to make plants grow, to provide homes for fish and aquatic life. Water quenches our thirst and purifies our body. It is necessary for all life, and without it, we would die. Water is life. So now let us put our minds together as one as we send greetings, love, and thanks to the waters of the world.
So.
And now to the fish that live in the waters. They live in so many different kinds of beautiful habitats, and they encourage us to come outdoors and to see these different beautiful areas. The fish were instructed to cleanse and purify the water, and they give themselves to us and other animals as food. I'm especially thankful that they encourage the young people in my life to get outside and connect to the natural world. So now let us put our minds together as one. Let us send greetings, love, and thanks to the fish.
So.
And now to the plants. They give so much beauty to the earth. They come in many forms, and they grow in every habitat on the earth. From very wet places, the very dry, the very rocky, and the very dark. They teach us how to survive. Let us now put our minds together as one to send greetings, love, and thanks to the plants.
So.
Specifically, let us acknowledge the medicine herbs. They were instructed to take away sickness. They are waiting and ready to heal us. There are some who still remember how to use these plants to heal the human beings. Let us put our minds together as one to send greetings, love, and thanks to the medicine herbs.
So. So now we have the food plants, and these three that are seen here are the most important. You got the corns, bean, and squash. And we grow these together. They take care of one another. And these are sustainers. These three plants alone you can survive on. You can eat these three things year round and you'll be able to survive. So these ones are very important to the Haudenosaunee because these are the ones that we maintain and keep always. So at this time, let us put our minds together as one and give greetings, love, and thanks.
Oh,
So now we go on to the berries. I just want to mention here the berries, the strawberries are our leaders also. So when these berries come out, they're the first ones after the sap. So we just really want to give thanks to all these berries. They help us cleanse our blood. They help us. What did you write? Oh, and they're treats.
they're a special treat in the springtime.
So let us just make sure that we put our minds together as one with greetings, love, and thanks.
So let us also acknowledge the trees. There are so many different kinds and growth forms. They provide us with shelter and shade. They teach us many lessons about being rooted, but how to let go as they shed their beautiful leaves in the fall. They provide us with the oxygen that we breathe, which is necessary for life. I included here some of my favorite trees, including the sycamore and the tulip poplar. The leader of the trees is the sugar maple, and they provide the sap that runs in the early spring, which is used as one of the most important foods for the Haudenosaunee. So now let us put our minds together as one. We will send greetings, love, and thanks to the trees.
So
And so here we are with the birds, our reason for being here tonight, right? And so there are so many beautiful birds of many different kinds and many different habitats. And we have the ducks and the wading birds and the passerines and the raptors. Tom Porter has taught me something that's very special about the birds, and that the Creator gave the birds all the beautiful colored feathers and the most beautiful songs to bring joy to our lives. The colors and the songs of the birds are meant to shake up our minds so that loneliness and sadness does not settle there. The purpose of the birds is to bring joy and happiness to all the people. So let us put our minds together as one. We will send greetings, love, and thanks to all the birds of the world.
So
And to all the other animal beings. Again, there are so many. We include the pollinators and the reptiles, amphibians, the mammals. Let us also acknowledge our domestic animals who bring us companionship and are here and have helped us in so many ways throughout human life and society. And they give us our bodies also as food, and we thank them for that. The leader of the animals is the white-tailed deer. Tina will tell you why.
yes, with the white-tailed deer, the leader, you have the buck with the antlers. And in our beliefs, the instinct of that deer is why our leaders wear the antlers on their castoas. And when I say castoa, this is what a castoa is. And it's a ceremonial hat that they wear. And on top are eagle feathers. So when you see eagle feathers and the antlers together, you know that that person is a leader. And in that sense, it's almost like having antennas and keeping watch and watching out for danger. So mixed with the eagle feathers on top of it also is a keen eye. When they say you got the eagle's eye, you got the 20/20 vision. That's what our leaders have to have. So let us put our minds together and give greetings, love, and thanks to all these animals. So
And now we will mention the four winds. And the four winds are responsible for bringing the four seasons. Tom Porter teaches us that the winds from the north and the east bring the white blanket of snow to help the Mother Earth rest during the winter season after she has given birth all through the spring and the summer. The winds from the south and the west will then renew her each year, and the cycles of life will continue. So let us send greetings and love and thanks to the four winds.
to
And now the thundering beings. We call the thunders our grandfathers. They bring the rains to restore the creeks and the rivers and the streams each season and to renew life each year. Let us bring our minds together as one to send greetings, love, and thanks to our grandfather, the thunders.
to
And now to our elder brother, the sun, who brings the light to each new day. The sun helps the plants to grow. If the sun should go out, we will all die. We are thankful to the sun for faithfully rising in the east each morning and setting in the west each evening. Let us bring our minds together as one to send greetings, love, and thanks to the sun.
to
And now our grandmother, the moon, who lights the nighttime sky. She governs the movement of the tides, helps us measure the time. She is the leader among women and governs their natural cycles, which allow new babies to be born. Let us bring our minds together as one to send greetings, love, and thanks to our grandmother, the moon.
to
And now to the stars, which help the moon to beautify the nighttime sky. They light the darkness, and they have been used for thousands of years for navigation, helping us to guide our way home. Let us send greetings, love, and thanks to the stars.
to
And now to the four messengers, or the four enlightened teachers. The Haudenosaunee believe that there are four messengers that the Creator can send when the people of Earth have strayed from their original instructions and need reminding about how to live peacefully on the earth. One of those messengers is the peacemaker who came to the shores here of Onondaga Lake to unite the warring nations under the great law of peace, which guides them still today and became an influence to the early US leaders in setting up US democracy. Let us put our minds together as one and send greetings, love, and thanks to the four messengers.
to
And finally, to our Creator. Thank you for all of the gifts of creation. You have given us all that we need to live a good life here on Mother Earth. For all the love that surrounds us, we thank our Creator. So finally, let us put our minds together as one, and we send all of our most heartfelt greetings, love, and thanks to our Creator.
to
Thank you so much for letting us do that, for going through that process with us. That is actually the first time that Tina and I have really sort of done that on our own without guidance from this wonderful book, which I will talk to you more about later. But it's an English translation of a Mohawk version of the Thanksgiving address. It is something that if the speaker chooses can go on for several hours before starting a meeting. And as I said, it is to send the appreciation to the natural world. And it also is a way of getting everyone's mind on the same page. If we're all coming from different backgrounds, we have different belief systems, maybe different opinions about an important matter that we're going to deliberate on. Let us first acknowledge all of those things that are essential for life here on Earth. And whatever decision we're about to make, let us ensure that those things will be healthy and will exist here 7 generations into the future. So I'm going to fast forward now, thousands of years after the creation story, to the Great Law of Peace. Again, the story of the Great Law of Peace can actually take 10 days to tell. So in about 5 minutes, we will try to emphasize to you some of the important parts and also help you to recognize some of those important symbols that are a part of the story, including the bald eagle. So many thousands of years after the creation story, the people began to stray from their original instructions. And as this happened, there began to be arguments and violence and revenge. And it escalated into a very, very dark and violent time here in the lands of the Haudenosaunee. At this time, the Creator sent the peacemaker, who was born on the north shore of Lake Ontario and came here to this area in a white stone canoe. So if you think of a stone canoe, right, that's highly unlikely to float. But when the people saw him arrive and floating in this white stone canoe, they knew that he must have an important message. He ends up meeting 2 important helpers. And the first one is a woman named Jigonsase, and she is from the Seneca Nation. So again, just emphasizing the important role of women in Haudenosaunee society. Because of Jigonsase's help in convincing all the people to join the Great Law of Peace, the peacemaker makes her the mother of nations and helps her to initiate the clan system, which we'll talk about a little bit later in the presentation. And the clan system is basically those extended families that are led by a woman, a clan mother. And the idea is that they live collectively and look out for the well-being of all members of the family. The other person that the peacemaker meets is Hiawatha, or Ayamwenta. And he is actually in deep grief because he had 5 daughters and they were all killed in war. And Hiawatha was so devastated, so lost, that he was aimlessly wandering through the woods. And it was actually near Tully Lake where he was wandering and tripped over a tree root and tumbled down a hill and found himself at the shore of the lake. This is where he collects and creates what become the first wampum beads. And he uses these wampum beads as a way of sharing his story, of sharing his grief. He talks into the wampum beads. And he says if he encounters any other person who is experiencing the deep grief that he is enduring, he would offer his compassion and he would wipe the tears from their eyes with the softest deerskin cloth. He would use an eagle feather to remove the dust of death from their ears. And he would offer them a cool drink of water to remove the lump from their throat so that they might speak clearly again. When the peacemaker encounters Hiawatha, he actually does all of these things for Hiawatha, wipes the tears from his eyes so that he can see clearly again. removes that dirt from his ears so that he can hear the bird song and he can hear the children laughing, and gives him that cool drink of water so that he is able to share his story, and also that he is able to join the peacemaker and to share the peace with all of the people. So these three, the peacemaker, Joconsasay, and Hiawatha, over many, many years, travel throughout the 5 nations, sharing the message of peace. Some nations are more or less resistant to joining, but the biggest holdout is here in Onondaga. And the leader at the time, his name is Tadadaho, and he is evil and violent and considered a sorcerer. And all the people in Onondaga fear him, and they are afraid to accept the peace because they know it will anger Tadadaho. So when the peacemaker and Joconsasay and Hiawatha return, they come here to the very shores of Onondaga Lake, and they come with all the people and all the children, and they're singing and celebration. And when Tadadaho sees all the people who have accepted the peace, he finally relinquishes and agrees to join them. Because he made the biggest transformation in his heart and in his mind, he is given a position of leadership. So he becomes responsible for the spiritual well-being of all the Haudenosaunee. And the title of Tadadaho continues to this very day with the leader Tadadaho Sidney Hill here in Onondaga, who looks out for the welfare of all of the Haudenosaunee. One way that the peacemaker helps to convince Tadadaho that peace is the way to move forward is he asks for an arrow from each leader of the 5 nations. When he bundles those arrows together and tries to break them, they are unbreakable. And so he is demonstrating in that way that they are stronger together as a unified confederacy. He also uproots a great white pine tree, and he has all the warriors throw their weapons of war in the hole where the roots once were. There's a stream running underneath, and that water washes away those weapons of war. This is where the phrase "bury the hatchet" comes from. And so the peacemaker then has the warriors put that white pine back upright, and he puts the bald eagle at the top. And the bald eagle becomes the guardian of the peace. With that keen eyesight, the bald eagle has the ability to see threats from far outside of the Confederacy to warn the people when they might be in danger. The white pine was chosen because the needles grow in bundles or fascicles of 5, each one representing the 5 original nations. And so you can see here in this depiction by an artist, Tuscarora artist Raymond Sky, we have this mural here at the center. This is representing that day when all the nations came together to convince Tadadaho and the peace became official. And so each of the leaders is wearing one of those caps that Tina mentioned called a gustoa. You can see the deer antlers and the eagle feathers, which represent the deer antlers represent that position of leadership, as well as the eagle feathers, a different number and position for each nation. So that way, you know, whoever's wearing that particular gustoa, you can identify which nation they're coming from. So once again, we start in the east and move to the west. So we're moving right to left here. So starting with the Mohawk, the Oneida, I'm not sure if you can see my cursor here, the Oneida. In the center, holding this wampum belt, is Tadadaho in Onondaga, and Onondaga is 1 up, 1 down. You have the Cayuga and the Seneca, and in the background are the Tuscarora. So the Tuscarora joined the Confederacy in 1722. They had originally been living in this area, but moved south more toward the Carolina area, but were losing their homeland there. And were facing, violence from European settlers. So they followed the roots from the white pine, 4 white roots extending in the 4 directions, offering a path back to the great tree of peace. And so the Tuscarora rejoined the Confederacy in 1722. So this slide really just sort of reiterates those symbols that I had mentioned before. So from the left is that bundle of 5 arrows. So I kind of left out this part, but he first takes 1 arrow and snaps it easily. But when he has that bundle of 5 arrows, they cannot be broken. This symbol may be familiar to you. If you look on the back of your dollar bill, you will see a bald eagle clutching a bundle of 13 arrows representing each of the 13 original of the colonies or the original states. So this is one of many symbols that the US borrowed from the Haudenosaunee. Then you have the white pine as the tree of peace, the bald eagle as the guardian of the peace. This black and white symbol that you see here is the symbol of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. Around the outside are the 50 chiefs of all the nations, locked arm in arm, circling around all the clan families and protecting them and the tree of peace. And in that way, should the tree of peace ever fall, by being locked arm in arm, they will always prevent the peace from hitting the ground. To the right, you will see Tadadaho Sid Hill speaking at the United Nations. He's wearing his Gastoa, and you can see there those eagle feathers, 1 up, 1 down, representing his position as the leader at Onondaga. So as you can imagine, after hearing this story, that the return of bald eagles to Onondaga Lake is hugely symbolic. As many of you know, I'm sure I'm not sharing too much new information, but in the not so distant past, in the 1970s, there was 1 remaining pair of bald eagles in New York State, which was not successfully reproducing. And after banning DDT, eagles began rebounding in the state, and through the efforts of the DEC and the Fish and Wildlife Service, we started to see eagles growing in numbers in the state. And to see 100 eagles roosting in those trees at Murphy's Island is really a profound experience or moment. I'm sure all of you feel that way. In the beginning, Jason mentioned, and I mentioned, I had worked with the DEC on a project looking at overwintering habitat for bald eagles on the Delaware River. And I will tell you that I never once feel like accustomed to seeing eagles or feel bored with seeing eagles. Each and every time it's exciting, it's moving. You can sort of feel that feeling in your chest. Tina and I now have the privilege of seeing them almost every day. Driving to and from work, we see them out the front windows here. So thank you to all the advocacy work that you all are doing and trying to protect that habit around Murphy's Island. It's certainly very much appreciated by us, and I know by the folks at Onondaga Nation. And I would also just add that, based on the stories that we've shared, you can also maybe get a better sense for why the Onondaga feels so strongly about pushing for a full cleanup of the lake, of its tributaries, of the uplands and wetlands surrounding the lake. So, as I mentioned, they feel that they are in a reciprocal relation with the land, the earth, and all the parts of the natural world. They are still carrying out their duties and responsibilities. And so as the people, our responsibilities are to care for those parts of creation, to ensure that we're maintaining balance, and to do whatever it is that we can to restore our lands to a healthy, thriving system, and to ensure that these areas are protected for 7 generations into the future and beyond.
We definitely have to get the balance back. We have to move forward for that.
So we didn't want to solely focus on bald eagles here, because there are many other important ways that birds are significant to the Haudenosaunee. So I'm going to let Tina share a little bit about that with you all.
Okay, so as you know, we do have our clans in place, and it runs through the women's bloodline. We have 3 special for Onondaga alone. We have the heron, the hawk, and the snipe. Now, these 3 bloodlines still stand strong. And when we were talking about the great peace, the great law of peace, that bloodline put the clan down. From that day forward, it's the same name for each chief all the way down the bloodline. So we can find our path all the way back until today. So I know from thousands of years ago which bloodline is mine, just because I'm that clan. And when we move forward over to our passenger pigeons, and you see the dark sky there, you got to remember now, they're gone. There's no more. I believe it was 1914. The last one had died in a zoo. And this used to be a food resource for the Haudenosaunee people. And then they were just killed till there's none left. And we have the hermit thrush right here on top. This guy here, he's sneaky. We have a story about him that was told, that he rode the back of the eagle in order to get the beautiful song. And it was told that whoever got the highest was going to get the most beautiful song. So he rode the back of the eagle all the way until the eagle couldn't go any further. And then he took the last leap. So he got that. But he felt so guilty about it that he hides in the dark, which he does. So it's just a lot of things here that we just keep carrying on, and our stories are so true to the point where when scientists finally find it, it sits true with everybody. And our robin we have up in the corner, that's our first sign of spring. And that's the first sign. It's told there's a red medicine to help people. And that's what they used to rub on their chest. And the same sign comes out at the same time as the robins come out. So giving us the sign that the medicine is ready is when we see that robin.
Yeah, so just to add on what Tina said, the story of the hermit thrush is a part of that storytelling tradition of the Haudenosaunee, and much of the storytelling occurred during the winter months when the people were more restricted to staying inside in their longhouses, but those stories were intended to teach lessons. And so in this case, right, that cheating isn't really worth what you're going to get out of it or what the outcome is. So teaching important lessons. As far as the passenger pigeons, this is something that I just learned a couple of years ago. I had been doing an educator training at Onondaga, which is a Seneca Cultural Center out in Victor, New York, which is another place I would highly encourage folks to visit. I was not aware of what a critical food resource passenger pigeons were to the Haudenosaunee. So after the maple season, The passenger pigeons would return, and small hunting groups would seek out their roosting areas, and they would capture the squabs or the young birds and use those for food. But what you see is that they were doing it in a balanced way. So as part of something called the honorable harvest, this is something that Dr. Robin Kimmerer from ESF talks about a lot, the honorable harvest. So whatever it is you're collecting, whether it's an animal for food, whether it's a plant for medicine, you never take the first, you never take the last, you always ask for permission, and you never take more than what is needed. And so this is one of the other many ways that the Haudenosaunee continued to live in balance with the natural world. And then just adding upon the information that Tina shared about the robin. So there are dances that are performed for many reasons, but specifically to the robin, for example, as a part of, is it social or ceremonial?
Social.
So in this case, it's a social dance, but those dances are performed to express that gratitude for the return of spring, for the renewal of the plants and of the animals and the return of the animals. And so the ceremonies that you may hear about that Indigenous people have throughout the year, the purpose of the ceremonies is to give thanks, to celebrate those gifts of the natural world. And the belief is that gratitude is what continues the cycles of life. So it really emphasizes the way that they truly are connected to place, connected to the land, right? They don't see human beings as superior to the other living beings in the world. It is their responsibility to express that gratitude and to live in balance with the natural world. So with that being said, I just wanted to end with some suggestions. This is Native American Heritage Month. The writing may be a little bit blurry, but we sell these postcards here at the gift shop. You can also look online through Syracuse Cultural Workers. They offer these postcards here. But folks often ask us, what can we do? How can we be an ally? How can we help? And so we would recommend finding a way to incorporate that gratitude process in your daily life, to make a connection with the land. And I know that I'm speaking to the choir here, but man, there are a lot of people, right, who don't know the different kinds of trees or don't know the different kinds of birds. And the reason I say that is because that experience for me, like, transformed my perception of the world. When I first learned all of the trees when I was at ESF, it felt like it opened another dimension to me, another level of awareness. And I felt more at home, right, in the places that I was already familiar with. And when I learned the bird songs, it brought me so much enjoyment. It's what, I'm not a morning person, but I will get out of bed at 4 or 5 a.m. to go out and to hear those, those spring migrants coming through. And so, yeah, I just encourage, or to grow a garden, to get outside and put your hands in the soil. So that is a way that you can also be an ally. There's a wonderful local organization called Neighbors of Onondaga Nation. So you can find them online through the Syracuse Peace Council. They do a lot of work to support the nation. Also, like I said, I think probably most of us are tuning in from ancestral Onondaga lands, but we encourage people, find out who the Indigenous people are on whose lands you're living and working, and to acknowledge them in the events that you host or when you're talking with other people. And so there are many other ways. Those are just a few that we emphasized, but we appreciate so much that you would join us. I think we did pretty well at sticking to an hour on time, and I only I only got emotional one time, so big success there. But we're certainly willing to take questions if folks have some, but we just want to thank you so much for your interest and your attention and the time that you would take to be here tonight for this presentation.
Yes, Nyamaha.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah and Tina. Round of applause or finger snaps or emojis or whatever.
Jason, I don't know if folks have questions. Are you able to kind of monitor that for us?
Yes, sure. Happy to moderate some questions. So if folks have questions, we can do this a number of ways. One, if you put your mouse down on the bottom of the screen, you see a reactions menu. You can raise your hand that way. Or you can type a question in the chat and I'll keep an eye on that. And then lastly, you could just unmute yourself and speak up, whichever you'd like. So are there any questions out there or comments?
So many thoughts. And I'm just blown away. I think everybody else is speechless too. Incredible. Sarah, Tina, thank you for what you do and taking the time. I think you're going to have a lot more visitors after tonight to have a meeting to go to the center.
Thank you. We look forward to you visiting.
Yeah. And ways to educate the general community. I mean, that's what, you know, I'm sure we're all part of other groups too. Like for myself, it's SRAG, Environmental Sustainability Rotary Action Group. So many different ways. How can we connect with you and how can we, is it Neighbors of Onondaga Nation? Is that the best way to go to partner? And
yeah, I mean, they're a fantastic organization. They're really active. They partner with us quite a bit on different events. A program that they host is called Witness to Injustice. And it used to be in person. They've been doing it virtually over the last year, however long we've been into this pandemic now. But that's really designed to help folks have a better understanding for the devastating effects that European colonization had on the indigenous people of Turtle Island. But certainly, I guess I could write in the chat here in just a second. I have a problem like multitasking here, but folks, come in, talk to us. We talk to every single person who comes to the door. I'll put my email in the chat, contact us here. And yeah, we would love to talk to you, help educate you more, and whether that's through additional talks or speakers or events. Yeah,
I was going to say, I think you nailed it. Yeah, education is the best way to help, right? It's just.
Yeah. I also want to recommend some books. I set them aside.
Oh yeah, Sarah, I was going to say that one person did ask in the chat if you could specify a book you mentioned earlier.
So yeah, okay. So I know I'll try to cut it down. So the one that I mentioned earlier is this little booklet that we do sell here in the gift shop. You can also get it through Syracuse Cultural Workers, but it's a little, we laugh, we call it the Reader's Digest Thanksgiving Address, but it just gives you that, it helps you keep things in order. It kind of gives you the gist of how to conduct the address, and but then you can use it and personalize it in your own special way. So that's one.
Well, I have something to add to that. Now, if someone told you this was the skeleton key, what would you do with it? Because that's what we're told, that this is the skeleton key back to unity and back to the beginning of when this balance really was a balance. That's all.
Yep.
Wow.
So this is a booklet that was created by Neighbors of Onondaga Nation in conjunction with leaders from the Onondaga Nation. We sell it here at the gift shop. You can actually find a PDF of it online through Syracuse Peace Council. It's kind of like a Haudenosaunee 101. It covers many of the topics we talked about tonight or that we have here in the center. Just wonderful short essays about many topics, important dates, explanation of treaties. So this really is sort of like your 101 here. I feel like I failed to mention a little bit about how the Scano Center came to be. So if there aren't that many questions, I can talk about that a little bit, but I don't want to hold folks up on time.
Can I just ask you, Sarah? Oh, sorry.
No,
while you're talking about these books, also too, if you could mention like when you're open, when what your hours are like. And maybe
Yeah,
you'll
for
get there.
sure. We're open for our normal business hours. So Wednesday through Friday, 10 to 4, Saturday and Sunday, 11 to 4. Right now, we just require masks for, regardless of vaccination status, you have to wear a mask. We do conduct guided tours. They have to be a group of 10 or more, set up as far in advance as possible. I say that because September through December, we're booked almost daily for tours. It's great. We're getting a lot of school groups in for visits. So we really appreciate that. I do sort of give a little bit of a warning. The center was originally designed sort of at the college and up level. We don't have a lot of hands-on activities or objects to look at or to touch. We really emphasize we're not a museum. We are a cultural center, and we're mostly like narrative based. And we have videos here with Haudenosaunee leaders sharing with you this cultural and history and philosophy. And we try to emulate that oral history experience. But Tina and I are working on some children's programming. And so we hope to be able to adapt this content for younger audiences as well. Yeah. Just to keep going real quick, I only have 2 more. I'm guessing most of you have read Braiding Sweetgrass, the most incredible book ever written, in my opinion, by Dr. Robin Kimmerer at SUNY ESF. Reading that book is actually what brought me to the Scano Center. I came to visit. I was in between jobs, and I came through the center, and the director was looking for an assistant at the time, and everything related to that book and a lot of what happens here at the Scano Center is very surprisingly serendipitous. We have conversations with people, and we talk about almost like the stars aligning in ways that it feels really magical. So great book. If you haven't read it, absolutely read it. This other book is called And Grandma Said by Tom Porter, who I've mentioned several times. He is just an incredible teacher. The way that book came about is that for many, many years, Tom was teaching these spiritual traditions. He started a school called the Akwesasne Freedom School to try to teach Mohawk children their language and other traditions through school. And his grandmother, 25 years after she died, visited him through a dream and told him, I want you to write down everything that I taught you throughout your life, so that the young people who don't have grandparents who remembered those traditions, very much so because of what happened with residential boarding schools. And I can talk more about that, or you certainly can learn more about that here at the center. She wanted him to be able to share that information with other young Haudenosaunee people. If you go online and you listen to Tom Porter and the way he speaks, it's a great way to do that like at the same time you're reading the book, because the book is a recording of him giving talks. And so in a way you sort of feel like he's speaking to you through the book. And as Tina mentioned, in that book, he calls the Thanksgiving address the skeleton key. It's the original instructions for all human beings. It's really what unites us all. So those are my top recommendations. I certainly have others, but I would encourage you to come in and chat with us, and I will give more.
Gosh, you make me want to pop over there tomorrow and pick up a few.
I know we're close. We're close tomorrow.
Oh.
We need a day off.
Yes, you do.
But please come in on Friday.
Incidentally, somebody did ask in the chat if you were open on November 26th. Will there be any special events on Indigenous Peoples Day?
We don't have anything planned. It's kind of like a little bit of a sore spot for us. So we are the staff here. It's a 2-woman show. And with this being our busiest season, we just get burned out by this time of year. And so we don't have anything specific planned. But certainly, I'm not sure what day of the week the 26th is, if it's the day after Thanksgiving, but we'll be open. So
Friday.
yeah. Mhm.
Sarah and Tina, I just want to share with you that so many really incredible comments are coming in through the chat.
Oh,
I
that's
wish I could read them all to
awesome.
you, but if
Oh,
you
I
get the chance to
appreciate
look,
it. Are we
um,
able to see them in the recording?
I
do you
can
know?
I can save the chat
Okay.
and
Okay.
I can send that to you.
Thank you
Um,
so much.
Really, yeah, a lot of
Come
really great
visit.
comments.
Oh, we have a question from our in-person guest.
Oh, great.
Sure. So our guest is asking if there are ways to support our center specifically. So this kind of leads me a little bit into how we're managed. It's a little bit of a complicated story. So very easily, I will tell you that we have a donation box. So you're welcome to drop a few dollars in when you come to visit. We are managed by the Onondaga Historical Association. So all of our entrance fees, when we host events, we either charge a small fee or just ask, we have like a suggested donation. All of that money goes through Onondaga Historical Association, but it is earmarked for the Scano Center. I'll just add on to that a little bit by saying many of you may remember the original Sainte Marie among the Iroquois program that was here for many, many years. It started in the 1930s during the public works programming where they were building Onondaga Lake. And at that time, they wanted to recognize this location for a time when a small group of Jesuit priests came to this area from Quebec and established a relationship with the Onondaga. So at that time, they built what was called the French Fort, which was widely popular. Over time, they developed a living history interpretive program. I'm sure many of you visited at some point in your life. Around 1990, when the buildings sort of fell into disrepair, they recognized that the old French fort really was not historically accurate. It represented a little bit more of like a military style fort. So they modified it to look more like a mission. And so what that mission represented was in 1656, after Simon Le Moyne had been to this area and discovered the salt wells, he encouraged a group of Jesuit priests to come to this area. So they came here by waterway. It was super convenient for transportation in that way, but also being in Onondaga, they had access to the other Haudenosaunee nations. So, they certainly, their primary motive was to spread Christianity, to convert the Haudenosaunee to Christianity. There certainly was the fur trade was really important at that time. And so it was advantageous to have, beneficial relationships or positive relationships with the different nations for the fur trade. They also had a deed from France to claim somewhere in the something like 600 square miles of land in this area, which, as you can imagine, we had no knowledge or consent of the Onondaga people here. And it turns out they were here for 18 months. So just really a blip in history compared to the thousands of years, that the Onondaga people had been here. So at some point, very shortly after they arrived, the relationship dissolved and the Jesuits returned to Canada, to Quebec. But this program continued here, this interpretive program continued for many decades. It definitely had a skewed colonial perspective. And over time, the program became bankrupt and it eventually shut down. And so at that time, specifically some professors from Syracuse University partnered with the Onondaga Historical Association, and then they pulled in other scholars from the local colleges. So we have a steering committee with people from Syracuse University, Le Moyne, ESF, so Robin Kimmer, for one, is on our steering committee, OCC and Empire State College, and then collectively with leaders from the Onondaga Nation developed the center. So created the content, the narrative, and we meet with them regularly, and they, you know, weigh in on programming and content and, you know, new thing, whether it's the children's programming or a new initiative to kind of revitalize the mission, because it's still open to the public. I mean, it's closed for the season, but they're not going to take it down. It's still up. And so if it's going to be up and people are going to go through those buildings, we really want to give a more complete version of the history of what happened there. So all of that is overseen by our steering committee. Also, we're in a Onondaga County building. So their contribution here to us is the space that we're in, the maintenance of the grounds, electricity, internet, all those sorts of things. So a lot of players here, a lot of people involved, a lot of brilliant people on our steering committee, but where the rubber hits the road, you're looking at it. Yeah.
Sarah, I don't want to interrupt.
Yeah, sure.
I want to give a shout out too. I mean, so Facebook, I'm just on there. You guys have a lot of great events too. So that's another way to follow you, like you attend all the things.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah, we try to be as active as we can on Facebook and Instagram. We don't have a huge following on Twitter, so we do post our events that way. Social media is something that tends to like kind of fall down in the list of things to do when we get really busy. So, but we do try to post as often as possible.
Well, you might get really busy there in your gift shop if all 32 or to 40 of us pop in there and purchase some books.
And we're a little bit right now light on items, but we also carry as much as possible handmade items from Onondaga, another Haudenosaunee artist. So beadwork, rattles, paintings, what else? Woodwork by Alf Jocks, who's a traditional wooden lacrosse stick maker. We don't sell his sticks, but he makes other things like corn soup spoons. And so we try to feature Indigenous artists and support them in that way as much as possible.
Amazing. Amazing.
I'm gonna drop my email in the chat here.
Okay. Thank you. That would be great.
Yep. And yeah, check out Tom Porter, another really brilliant Haudenosaunee speaker that you can find on YouTube is John Mohawk. He's passed away. He was a Seneca leader. Oh yeah, someone mentioned, okay, I have the chat open now. Sorry, it was, I had it closed for a while, but Tom Huff is the amazing stone sculptor, and we have some of his work on display here. We actually also have a gallery. He's also a collector, and over many decades, he has collected stereotypical works of art that highlight Native American stereotypes. So it could be like food packaging, toys, sports, shirts and mascots, liquor bottles, all sorts of things. So that will remain on display at least through the end of this year before we get more another exhibit in.
Great.
I'm so glad everyone enjoyed the presentation. This
Oh my
has been
gosh,
awesome.
so wonderful. Such a honestly a bright light in this kind of dark month.
Yes.
Really,
right.
Thank you for a wonderful, wonderful presentation.
Yes. You can see why I work here, right?
Yeah, I mean, of course.
I mean, I miss field work, but there's another part of my soul that is really satisfied through the work that I'm doing here. So,
well, thank you. It's such really important work. We're very, very happy to have you. Just FYI, I see a number of people asking about the recording to this, and we will post it on our webpage. Allison posted in the chat a link to our page. The recording will be up there and on our Facebook page too.
I think I saw too, someone mentioned about sharing this to the Master Naturalist group. So I don't know if they wanted another live presentation or just to share the recording, but I mean, we're certainly willing, whether it's live or just sharing this one, that's okay with us. If you want to set something up, email me. Yeah.
Sarah, that was me, so I will email you privately.
Okay, thank you, Mary.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Sarah and Tina, both. And also thanks to Chris and the OLCC for joining us here tonight. We're super happy to have you. This is really fantastic. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank
Good
you,
job, all.
everyone. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Maha.
Thanks, Sarah. That was so amazing. It definitely made me emotional as well. So thank you so much to both you and Tina for sharing this beautiful, beautiful knowledge with us that we definitely needed.
Awesome. You're welcome,
Sarah.
Allison. It was really a pleasure to be here tonight.
Sarah, Tina, thank you. And we'll be visiting you soon to learn more. I'm really interested in learning about managing and helping to bring more balance to Onondaga Lake, to Montezuma, to other areas across central New York.
Wonderful.
talk soon.
Yeah, that sounds good. We'll look forward to working with you, Chris. Thank you so much for your support.
Thank you.
Definitely. And if there is ever any way that we can repay by leading bird walks or any way we can repay any of the Onondaga Nation, we're happy to do that as well.
Wonderful. Thank you. I'll
Oh, Nyamaha.
pass that along. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Sarah, how many people can you take at a time there? Like if I were to bring a class from Lemoyne, can you handle?
Sure. Okay, so during the spring and summer months when the mission is open and we can pull
Yes.
someone from the main OHA office, which is not always possible, but we try. We can get about 75.
Oh, wow.
If
Okay.
it's just Tina and I, we can do 50, but
Okay.
I will tell you that we prefer, but what we have to do is split the groups up. If we can get 25, Tina and I like to do the tour together. You can see we sort of have
Yeah,
a
for
kind of
sure.
a tag team way of presenting. That's our preferred way. So like around 25, just because of spacing really. The center is small and the like the layout is sort of irregular. And so just so that everyone can hear and see the video screens, that's kind of our
Right.
cap. But if
Gotcha.
it was 30 or 28 or something, we can make it work.
Great. Thank you. I'll keep that in mind. I'll probably be in touch soon, perhaps.
Okay, that sounds good. All right, take care, everyone. Thank
Okay,
you so
thanks. Good night,
much.
everyone.
Good night.
Thanks for
Good
coming.
night.
Good night.
Anna.
Bye to everyone.